The Waco table was set. Smiles were warm. The turkey smelled perfect. And then my dad asked, "Is the $2,000 a month enough for you?" My fork slipped. "What money?" Mom looked away, her eyes sinking to her plate. And in that silence, everything cracked open. The money meant to support me through med school had been secretly funding my sister's LA dream life. While I rationed ramen and stapled my shoes together, she was sipping rooftop cocktails in silk dresses. I didn't scream. I watched. And I planned. This is the story of how a Thanksgiving dinner exploded and how I took my life back. Philadelphia wasn't gentle. The streets were loud, the winters were sharp, and med school didn't care if you hadn't eaten in 2 days. I'm Iris Walker, 22, second-year med student at a school that sounds impressive when you say it fast. But when you live it slow, it eats you alive. My mornings started before the sun came up. Gross anatomy lab by 6, tutoring in the afternoon, bartending until 2 a.m. The bags under my eyes had their own zip code. My sneakers were falling apart, soles duct-taped and stapled shut. My meals? Instant ramen if I was lucky, protein bars if someone forgot them in the tutoring lounge. I told myself it was temporary, just until next semester, just until I cleared rent, just until the loan came through, just until... But the math never worked, not once. Some nights I counted coins before heading to the store. Other nights I skipped meals and told myself hunger built discipline. I emailed Mom once, asking for $50 to replace my anatomy atlas, pages soaked from a busted pipe. She replied, "That's a luxury, Iris, make do." Meanwhile, my sister's Instagram lit up with rooftop brunches, champagne flutes, cream-colored silk skirts, and captions like "Chasing dreams, thanks, Mom." One night, after a double shift at the bar, my legs just stopped working. I collapsed in the break room with a tray still in my hands. Next thing I knew, I was under fluorescent lights in the ER, an IV in my arm. The nurse asking, "Do you have someone we can call?" I gave them my parents' numbers. No one picked up. I was discharged from the ER the next morning. No one came to get me. I walked home, 1 block at a time, head pounding, shoes soaked from icy slush. When I opened the door to my apartment, the radiator wasn't working. I wrapped myself in 2 sweaters and sat on the floor, still wearing my coat. A few hours later, there was a knock. Caleb, my lab partner. He stood in the hallway with a bag of groceries and a pan of baked ziti wrapped in foil. No questions, no pity. He just said, "You can't keep doing this alone, Iris." He set the food on the counter, looked around at the peeling paint, the half-dead plant on my windowsill, the cracked coffee mug I'd been using for weeks. "You shouldn't have to live like this," he added. I didn't have the energy to argue. I just nodded. That night, I ate something warm for the first time in days. The next morning, I opened my laptop and stared at my student account balance, red, blinking, mocking me. Then I opened Google Flights, just to look, just curiosity. A one-way ticket to Waco, $137, 2 layovers, middle seat, no meal. I stared at the confirm booking button for a long time. And then I clicked it. Not because I missed home, not because I thought anything would change, but because I needed to know why. Why my life felt like a punishment, while my sister floated through a curated dream. Why Mom never called. Why I didn't matter enough to be chosen. The Waco house hadn't changed. White siding, blue shutters, the same cracked step on the front porch. The smell of rosemary and sage drifted from the kitchen. Everything looked warm, familiar enough to feel dangerous. Mom opened the door wearing that soft smile I hadn't seen in a while. "Iris, baby, look at you. So thin. Philly must be eating you alive." She pulled me into a hug like nothing had happened, like she hadn't ignored my messages, like she hadn't let me starve in silence. Dad, Byron, was in the kitchen, humming along to soft jazz as he basted the turkey like a surgeon. "Dinner's almost ready, Doc-to-be," he said. I smiled, or tried to. The table was set, shining like a page out of a Southern cooking magazine. China plates, polished silver, napkins folded like swans. Sariah's seat was empty. Off in LA, chasing her dream in a different time zone. We passed the dishes around: sweet potatoes, stuffing, gravy in a warm ceramic boat. The conversation was surface level: school, weather, the new neighbors. Then Dad looked at me across the table and said casually, "Is the $2,000 a month enough?" My hand froze midair. The fork slipped from my fingers and hit the plate with a sharp clang. I looked at him. My mouth went dry. "What money?" I asked. The air in the room shifted. Dad blinked. "The money we've been sending you. $2,000 a month, since last year. Leona said..." He turned to Mom. Her face had gone pale. "Iris," Mom started. "It's not what you think." "No?" I said, my voice low. "Because I think you took the money meant for me and gave it to Sariah." She hesitated. That pause was everything. "She needed it more," Mom said. "Her program in LA is expensive. She's building something real out there. She's working so hard." "And I'm not?" I asked. "You think med school is a hobby?" "Iris, come on. You always figure things out. You've never needed as much." "No," I cut in. "I've just never asked. And that made it easy for you to forget me." Dad was still staring at Mom, stunned. "Leona, you told me it was going to Iris." Mom didn't answer. Her lips pressed together in that familiar way that always meant, "I've made up my mind, and I won't admit it out loud." "You lied to both of us," I said. "And you let me believe I was just unlucky, just broke, just bad at surviving." "I thought you could handle it," she said softly. I pushed my plate away. "I handled it," I said. "Barely. I passed out from exhaustion. At work. But sure, I handled it." Nobody spoke. The candles flickered in the silence. I stood up. My chair scraped loud against the hardwood floor. "I'm not hungry anymore," I said. "You can save the pie for Sariah." And I walked out, not just from the table, but from the illusion that this was still a family. I sat on my old bed, staring at the ceiling I once covered in glow-in-the-dark stars. Most of them had peeled off by now. The room smelled like dust and dried-up memories. I pulled my knees to my chest and tried not to cry. A soft knock came at the door. "It's me," Dad said quietly. I didn't answer, but he opened it anyway. He looked older than I remembered, not just in the hairline or the lines around his eyes, but in his posture, like something inside him had finally bent. He sat on the edge of the bed. "I had no idea," he said. "I believe you," I replied, "but that doesn't make it hurt less." He nodded, staring at the floor like it could explain everything he missed. "I thought your mom was handling it. She said you were fine, that you didn't need as much help, that med school was covered." "I emailed her 3 times asking for help," I said. $50 for an anatomy atlas. You know what she said? "That's a luxury, Iris." Meanwhile, Sariah's out there buying cocktails with gold flakes and posting "Thanks, Mom" in every caption. He rubbed his face with both hands. "God, I feel like a fool." "You trusted her," I said. "So did I." Silence stretched between us. "I need to see the account," he said suddenly. "The trust fund, the one your grandfather left for both of you." I followed him downstairs to the study. He turned on the desk lamp, unlocked his laptop, and logged into the account. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Then he clicked. We watched the screen together. Every transaction, every wire, every withdrawal, all of it, to Sariah. Month after month, year after year, $250,000. Gone. The room felt colder. He leaned back in the chair and whispered, "She told me it was split, that she was managing it. I just signed the approvals." "She didn't just steal from me," I said. "She let me drown and made it look like I chose to." Dad didn't say anything for a long time. Then, "I'm calling a lawyer." The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Mom didn't bring it up. Not the dinner, not the money, not even the look in Dad's eyes that night. She moved through the house like a ghost, setting out plates, folding towels, asking if I wanted more tea, like the last 24 hours hadn't happened. But I was watching her, and so was Dad. On Saturday afternoon, I came downstairs and heard voices in the kitchen, low, tense. Then I heard my name. I stayed in the hallway and listened. "I told you, no more," Dad said, voice low but sharp. She needed it, Mom replied. Just enough to cover January's rent. She's in between modeling jobs. This is temporary. No, Dad said. You're not listening. It's over. You don't get to decide that Iris survives while Sariah thrives. There was a pause. She's delicate, Mom said, her voice trembling for the first time. She always has been. You know that. She wouldn't last a week if we pulled everything. Iris is stronger. That word again. Stronger. Like that justified the years I spent going without. Dad didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Iris passed out at work, Leona. She walked home alone from an ER because no one picked up the phone. That's not strength, that's abandonment. I heard the drawer slam, footsteps, then silence. I stepped back before they saw me. But I already knew. It was over. On Monday, Dad filed for separation. 30 years of marriage, over. Not with a fight, not with a scream, but with a quiet signature on a stack of papers in a lawyer's office downtown. The Waco house felt different after that. Still smelled like rosemary, still had the same framed pictures on the walls, but the warmth was gone. And honestly, I didn't miss it. I was back in Philly a few days later. The air hit colder, sharper, but it felt cleaner somehow. I dropped 2 bar shifts, just enough space to breathe again. I bought a new pair of sneakers, nothing fancy, but they had intact soles. I stopped skipping meals. Real food started replacing cup noodles. My grades? They rose like they'd been waiting for me to finally show up for my own life. And then my phone rang. Sariah. Her name flashing on the cracked screen almost made me not answer. But I did. Her voice was clipped, controlled, like she was already bracing for impact. Mom says I'm only getting $1,000 a month now, she said. Is that true? I leaned against the wall, looked out the window at a sky turning slate gray. Yes, I said flatly. That's true. She was quiet for a moment. Then, she said it was your fault. I snorted. Of course she did. I didn't know, she said. I swear. I didn't know where the money came from. You never asked. I thought she was helping both of us. She wasn't. I didn't mean to take it from you, Sariah whispered. But you did, I said. And while I was working 2 jobs and eating stale protein bars, you were drinking mimosas and tagging "Thanks, Mom" under photos of brunch. There was another pause, longer this time. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. I didn't want to believe she'd lie to me, she said. But I guess she lied to both of us in different ways. She did, I said, and we let her. Her voice cracked on the next sentence. Just a little. I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't enough, but it was real. We didn't talk again for a couple of weeks. Finals came and went in a flurry of caffeine, highlighters, and sleepless nights. But every now and then, I'd catch myself opening our message thread and staring at that last line. I'm sorry. It sat there like a tiny crack in the ice, not enough to fall through, but enough to hear the creak. Then, one Thursday afternoon, she texted again. No words, just a photo. She was standing in front of a small boutique. No designer logos, no filters, just her, holding a handmade dress up to the window. In the corner of the photo, taped to the glass, was a handwritten sign, Local Creators Wanted. Her caption read, Not Dior, but mine. I stared at it for a long time, not sure what I was supposed to feel. Then I typed back, Looks good. She replied almost instantly. I'm trying, Iris, I really am. A few days later, she called. Not texted, not a voice memo, a real call. I answered on the 3rd ring, still unsure why. Her voice was different, softer, tired, but in a way that felt familiar now. I've been thinking about Christmas, she said, and I don't know, I thought maybe we could go back to Waco together. I didn't speak right away. For Mom? I asked. No, she said, not for her, for us, to just sit at that table again, as sisters. I stood by the window watching snow gather on the ledge. I'm not ready to forgive, I said. "I'm not asking you to," she replied. "I'm just asking you to come." And maybe, for the first time, she wasn't trying to charm me, or buy time, or make herself feel better. She was showing up, and somehow so did I. "Okay," I said. Together. The Waco house looked smaller in winter. The wreath wasn't on the door this time. The porch light flickered faintly above us as Sariah and I stood there, carry-ons in hand, hearts a little heavier than our bags. Mom opened the door. Her smile was thinner, her sweater plain, the streaks of gray in her hair no longer hidden. She stepped aside. No dramatic greeting, no hug, just a quiet, "You're here." Dad was in the kitchen, overcooking the turkey again. The smell filled the house like a habit no one wanted to break. Sariah helped set the table. I folded the napkins. No one mentioned the money. No one said, "I'm sorry." But no one lied either. We ate. The stuffing was dry, the gravy lukewarm, the conversation stiff. But it was real. No pretend joy, no fake laughs. Just people sitting at a table, trying, barely, awkwardly, honestly, to start again. Sariah asked about my classes. I asked about her boutique job. We talked about rent, hours, fabric, finals. Ordinary things that didn't hurt to say. Mom poured water, not wine. Dad passed the cranberry sauce and didn't flinch. No one raised their voice. And somehow, that felt like peace. Later that night, I sat in my old room. The posters were still taped crooked on the walls. The comforters still had the same faded stars. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I opened my bag and pulled out a copy of my tuition receipt, folded it neatly, and placed it in the top drawer. Next to it, I found a note from Dad. Just one line scribbled in black ink. "I finally see you." I read it twice, then again, and this time, I let it land. Downstairs, I heard laughter. Real, unfiltered laughter from Sariah. Mom didn't join in, but she didn't stop it either. She just listened. And maybe, for now, that was enough. You don't always get the apology you deserve. You don't always get the family you dreamed of. But sometimes you get something else. Not warmth, but truth. Not forgiveness, but clarity. Not love the way you wanted it, but love the way it actually is. Messy, cracked, still standing. Maybe that's the win.